Let me just take you back to the leasehold story we looked at earlier on this afternoon. I'll try and bring in as many of your comments as I can before the end of the program. It's been another really busy program. Thank you, as always. The story about the leasehold issue is that new legislation will not be made available to help crack down on controversial leasehold deals, as they've been labelled. Speaking at the Housing, Communities and Local Government Committee, the Housing Minister, Heather Wheeler, dismissed claims of mis-selling toxic leasehold deals and said any fresh legislation would trigger a horrendously expensive wave of compensation claims. Instead, the government will focus on relying on developers and property companies voluntarily giving families better terms. Earlier this afternoon, I spoke to Andrew Selous. Andrew is the Conservative MP for South West Bedfordshire, and I asked Andrew if it wasn't time to draw a line under these compensation claims.
From my point of view, I think that the development of selling particularly houses on their own plot of land on a leasehold basis where there is no valid or reasonable reason for that to happen is simply an unacceptable, frankly, rather spivvy process, which the developers never should have embarked on in the first place. You know, I have met and been to the homes of a number of my constituents who have been caught up in this. They've often, as first-time buyers, have been pressurised by the lawyers, in-house developers, to sign up saying this is totally normal, it won't be a problem. And I think it is an unacceptable means to basically trying to sell a house and rent it out at the same time to make extra money for the developer. So I think it just offends me hugely. I think it's wrong. So the government have taken moves, my understanding, to say that will not be allowed in future. Now, as to the second point as to how we actually help those people who are caught up within this, sometimes it is true the law is very slow and very expensive. I haven't had a chance to read the statement from the Housing Minister, but from my point of view, I still remain determined to try to provide redress for my constituents who have been caught up in what I think is frankly unreasonable behaviour. And I will continue to fight their corner.
The question is then, Andrew, whether if there is further redress to be sought by these homeowners, whether they need to seek legal advice and perhaps go through a legal channel through the developers rather than ask the government, because the government will change legislation, you say, but rather than ask the government to make up the shortfall.
I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not qualified to give legal advice, but as a Member of Parliament, I would want this to be as simple, quick and straightforward as possible to provide redress. Some of the developers we're talking about, like Persimmon, Galliford Try, who own Linden Homes, are very rich businesses who can afford to pay their senior executives enormous amounts of money, certainly in the case of Persimmon. So, there's clearly cash there to do the right thing and do the honourable thing. And, I think I have talked with the Chief Executive of the House Builders Federation about this issue. I think the behaviour of some house builders, frankly, it puts a stain on the reputation of the whole house building industry. Our house builders should be heroes. We need many more homes in this country so young people can get on the housing ladder. We can meet housing needs. We need affordable houses. But this particular practice, which frankly I think was dreamed up by some, spivvy finance director on a wet Friday afternoon to see how they could make even more money on a totally unreasonable basis. It was wrong. It never should have happened. And I think it is the duty of government to help often, I won't perhaps use the word vulnerable, but perhaps, first-time buyers, not experienced in buying property, who were often told they had to use the in-house solicitor of the developer. I think there is a very strong argument for the government to act, and there's certainly a cross-party group of MPs within the all-party group on Leasehold who feel as strongly as I do on this issue. I mean, there's a Conservative MP and a Labour MP who lead this group, Pete Bottomley on the Conservative side, Jim Fitzpatrick on the Labour side. They have led it for years. I'm a vice chair of this group, and I completely support what they're doing. We're supported by some expert external advice. So, that's my take on the issue. I'm creative and flexible as to how we find a solution. Heather Wheeler may well be right. As you know, the particular route being closed down may not have been the best way to do it, or the cheapest or the most efficient. I don't know yet. I haven't had a chance to read that statement, but we still do need to do right by these people who were caught out, many of whom have come to see me, many of whom I've visited in their own homes.
Andrew Selous, the Conservative MP for South West Bedfordshire, speaking to me a little earlier this afternoon. We'll take some travel news very, very shortly. Let me just update you on yet another of the more interesting news stories of the day.